Okay, so this video is going to cover, it's part of exercise 26 from the old book, Basic Mammalian Anatomy. So now in our last instructional lab together, because we don't get to do a lab for ecosystems and conservation biology, unfortunately. But in our last lab, we want to take a look at the basic anatomy of mammals. And a pig is a great model organism. Again, model meaning that we can use it to help us understand us. Though it is imperative, right, in the study of biology that we do understand all organisms, and you've gotten a great overview through this course. I mean, nothing very deep, but definitely broad in all the different organisms. So here in this last lab, we're just going to focus on this class Mammalia and use this representative, the fetal pig. All right. So I've got a couple here, but I just want to look through here on page 371 in the book, and I loaded the PDF of this from this exercise yesterday. So here we get the overview. Again, they're fetal pigs. They've never been born, so there are some differences to consider. And this means they don't have much subcutaneous tissue. In other words, not a lot of fat and connective tissue that makes our dissection a little bit easier. All right. Externally, I have a male and a female example here, but when you look at a female, it's very easy to tell the difference. A female always has this urogenital papillae, all right? And it's very close to the anus, so sometimes you get fooled and think that's actually a penis, and that's not. It's part of the female genitalia. And then a male would have nothing evident on the outside. You might see the scrotal sac, so just an area where there looks like there's two bulges, but it's not real evident on the male. All right. So one of the dissections that we did in class, is we opened up the oral cavity to take a look at this feature, the hard palate. All right. So the hard palate, a unique feature to the mammals, allows a separation of the oral cavity that you see here and the nasal cavity that would be up here. Right? And this was an adaptation so that food could be chewed. And in chewing it, we could extract energy more efficiently because as endotherms, right, we really need to be able to generate our own heat. All right? So it's also called the secondary palate, but the hard palate is evident here. These are fetal pigs, so they won't have a lot of teeth. That also makes the dissection very nice. You might, from the oral cavity, see the epiglottis, which is a part of the larynx, which marks the beginning to the respiratory system, the unique part of the respiratory system. All right? So that would be done, and we'd see a few features here. In an actual photograph, right, here's the cartoons that accompany, but a photograph, we should be able to see, and I don't think light's going to help this, but I'll turn it on. No, not really. All right? So we should be able to see we're close up here in the pharynx region. All right? So just below the larynx here, continuous with the trachea that we'll see. Esophagus is posterior to that, so behind it, more dorsal in a quadruped. All right? So you should be able to identify esophagus. The thyroid might not be evident because it might have been removed by accident. Trachea definitely, and lungs, just like you had to identify the lungs in the frog. All right? This is a dissection that they recommend, and we did in class together. So there were a series of cuts. Really what you're looking for is a midline incision that excludes the umbilicus, and because the bladder is going to be found in here, and you want to conserve that. And then some horizontal cuts so that you can open up the body cavity and take a look inside. All right? So here, when we've looked inside, right, open that up, and they actually, as Dr. Kett pointed out, he says, they really didn't follow their dissection. They just have a gaping hole here. And I think, and I don't think light's going to, no, it's just going to bleach it out, going to help this. So I had to zoom out so you get the big picture, and then we'll zoom in to just, other way, zoom in to try to take a look at this. Right, thoracic diaphragm separates this. This is a skeletal muscle that separates thoracic cavity from abdominal pelvic cavity in mammals. All right, you should be able to see most of these features. They're pretty straightforward. Again, context, there's a larynx up here and the trachea falling down here. You might be able to see the thymus gland, which is a little bit lower than the thyroid. So that's thyroid here, one round singular. Thymus is bilobed, so two parts to it. All right, heart, lungs, right, liver, gallbladder should be slightly discolored from the bile in it. Stomach, right, spleen should be evident for us. pancreas should be much easier to find here in the fetal pig. The small intestine, and underneath this will be the coiled large intestine. We'll see in another feature. Here's, again, the urinary bladder, we said, associated with the umbilicus. All right, and you'll see the umbilical arteries and veins. All right, this image, and I'll zoom out just a little, right? This image is what it would look like from the cartoon. Again, I've given you a PDF of all this. So not quite as pretty as the cartoons, not as clear lines, but still, all of it should be evident, with the exception, again, we're not going to hold you to all the blood vessels that we have here. Okay, so on this it says skipping the umbilical arteries, veins, carotids. All right, and then we skip ahead into 27, exercise 27, which continues the basic mammalian dissection. And in this case, we can take a closer look at the heart. The heart is still a fetal heart, so we'll see some of the blood vessels. Like, you should be able to figure out the inferior vena cava that leads into the right atrium, and the superior, which is also called the anterior, because this is a quadruped, and the inferior is called the posterior. So it's a posterior anterior in the pig, it's a superior inferior in us. All right, so we might see some of the major, the aorta might be very evident, and maybe the pulmonary artery. All right, so, and I've copied all this for you guys. This image is focusing male and female, right? And we'll take female first here. Zoom in a little. Right? So looking at the female track, and here's the kidneys to mark. We should be able to find those. And ureters are tubes leading down from each kidney. All right? The urethra would lead into, away from the bladder, right, which is right here associated with this part of the umbilicus. So you might be able, but I don't think we actually dug in to find the urethra, but we should easily find the kidneys and the ureters and the bladder. Now in the male, right, we're also should be able to find the penis, and we did find that pretty easily, leading right away from that bladder. And we'll be able to track some of the male parts. But he also has kidneys and ureters, right, coming down to the bladder, joining to the bladder. And then we'll have the additional penis here. All right, so, right, the male reproductive, so they've expanded this image a little bit from male, and then I'll show you we will easily find the vas deferens, and these are going to be looping behind the bladder, going into the cavity, the body cavity, so we should be able to see those. The testes will be really easy to see. The epididymis is really easy. So we found these very nicely. The pigs are fairly large, all right? So that should be evident to, again, differentiate male and female. And it will look kind of like this at first, but I'll point out the parts to you guys on the real pigs, because we'll be looking at those. All right? And then the female, the last part of our intro here. In the female, again, what we're really going to focus on for her is we're going to focus on her uterine horns, which are going to be next to the ovaries. So ovaries will be tiny paired. They'll be the equivalent of testis in the males, but ovaries in the females. And then a uterine horn, which is a specialized region. It looks like the oviducts, but it is not. Two tube-like structures, but called, again, the uterine horns, that will come down to the body of the uterus. So you don't see this happening, but they're joining behind here to the body of the uterus, right? And then the vagina leading out, such as human females have. And the urethra in front of that, just like human females. So, and again, the photography of what it looks like in the organism. So that is pretty much what we wanted to do. And on the next video, this is, again, just an intro to point out things to you guys. On the next video, we're going to take a look at the actual pig and point these out. So stay tuned.